Hello and welcome back to Learn Energy Healing. Today we're going to talk about something I briefly mentioned in the last video, and that is how to bring up an energy. So again, especially if you're not picking up on anything relating to a particular problem, at least initially, these sorts of techniques I'm about to describe can be very useful. So quite often when someone comes in person, it's quite natural for you to start talking about things, quite natural for you to start talking about a particular problem. And just talking about something, voicing something in the air will make it more obvious in the aura. Okay? And you may well pick up on things intuitively before someone even lies down on the table just by them talking. And you may know certain organs or parts of the body that might relate to that particular problem if you've been reading books like Louise Hay and Daniel Condon and people like that who relate different diseases, different body parts, and therefore different parts of the aura to particular issues, particular diseases. So you may have that sort of idea, but of course I would recommend that you work more, try not to use those books too much because you might miss out on other things that might be affecting the problem. Some books might say the liver is a lot related to anger, but you might miss out the fact that actually, kidneys, pancreas, stomach, a lot of these middle areas, and even the jaw and other parts of the body can also have anger in them. So try not to blind yourself with those sorts of books. And be more aware of where an energy is coming up. And let's give this a try, shall we? So we mentioned money earlier, and in the last video when I was talking about money issues, especially spending, she mentioned that her hands started to buzz and get all warm. And if you noticed towards the end of the last video, she was doing this a lot with her hands and getting fidgety with them. So sometimes body language can give away something as well. So there's no set way that you can do this. There are multiple different ways, and maybe I will do a series of videos about different ways of bringing up an energy. But simply talking about something, going, oh, so you have issues with spending, do you? And talking about, oh, okay, well, where do you have issues with spending? Is it with clothes or shoes or food?
To make a point, I don't have issues with
spending. So yeah, it could be any number of things that you can start talking about that might bring something up. It may well be that there's something in the past that happened. Maybe, when you were growing up, you had a lot of money, and so you were carrying on spending for that reason, or maybe you didn't, and you got told off and got told, no, we don't have the money for that. Or maybe there was something that you bought to relieve an issue, and emotional spending. There could be any number of things that you end up talking about that might bring up something. So with, this example we're using is we're spending money. It could be none of those things. It could be all of them. It could be just the one. And sometimes just certain words might trigger things more. And this is the key thing with using talking, questioning, conversations to bring up something. There's usually a trigger of some sort. And sometimes just discussing something might highlight what that trigger is. So we talked about money last time, didn't we, as an example of my speech bubble technique. And then I mentioned spending money, and that's when she felt this buzzing in her hands. So
I want to spend more money.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yes. So she mentioned spending money, and she herself mentioned her hands. So as we were talking about money issues and spending money, she mentioned her hands. She felt lots of buzzing in hands. So that's a good place to start, isn't it? Okay, if she mentioned that, let's feel. And yeah, straight away I'm feeling something in the hands, especially in the fingers. Whatever the books say about fingers versus the rest of the hand, I don't know, but certainly in the finger. So let's play around with that. Oh, a bit of a jump there. The camera is not showing her legs fully, but Her legs jolted there. So we're obviously on to something. I'm just doing the allow technique here, just letting energy move through. And if you've been watching the series of videos with me and my wife here, she seems to respond better, if you notice, to allow, where I sort of sit in a particular area and let the energy pass through my hands. She seems to respond quite good to that compared to the pulling things out technique. Okay, so that's starting to ease now, at least on that particular energy. And there we go, a little bit easier. How does that feel? Notice anything? Can't put your finger on it?
Well, maybe a little bit of a shift compared to the left hand.
And it feels like I could spend quite some time here.
Would that be related to like giving and receiving?
It could be related to giving and receiving, yes. I do like to think of different body parts and what they do, what their function is, and relate that to emotions, relate that to thoughts, relate that to beliefs. So yeah, hands are what you use. So hands very much relate to doing. You also receive with your hands, you also give with your hands. So yes, giving and receiving is another thing. Actioning things, if you have an issue with actioning things, that could be hands. Handling things, yes, exactly. And then, there's lots and lots of different things you could go down. You could look at the meridians in the hand. So we have heart meridian, lung meridian, spleen as well. You could look into what that means. So yeah, you can go down a whole rabbit hole sometimes just by looking at one body part and thinking what energy passes through there, what's the function of that particular body
really
part.
Think about energy building up in the hands.
Yeah, this is something I could spend quite some time with here. But we've seen a bit of a shift. There was a bit of a jolt earlier and there's still energy shifting.
Is the difference right hand, left hand?
Yes. Generally speaking, because most of the population is right-handed, the right hand tends to be more the giving hand, tends to be more the doing hand, more masculine side, if you like, which is more about encouragement and doing and motivating and getting something done. Whereas the left hand, if you are right-handed, tends to be more the receiving hand and therefore a little bit more defensive, a bit more creative, feminine, if you like. But, both hands will have both qualities to some degree or another anyway. But I don't want this video to go too much into different body parts. There we go. So if I mention money now, and this is another really useful tool, if you talk about the same subject again, and you ask, do you feel any different? Do you feel a charge? Do you feel a trigger if I talk about spending now?
No.
Not so much? Okay. My feeling is there still is a charge there still is something, but she feels a little bit better when I mention those words. It isn't quite so, because sometimes when you mention certain words, there is this tension that happens in the aura, as if to say, yes, I am the spending problem. Look at me. Okay, so another key place I was drawn to intuitively is here. So I mentioned spending, 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 and then I go to this area. Yeah, I mean, I quite possibly could have picked that up anyway without having to mention the words. But I'm pretty sure that's more obvious now that we've been talking about spending. Because my sense was there's something relating to power. Relationships, this area is about relationships too, generally speaking. How you relate to money, how you relate to power, the beliefs of power relating to money. If you have more money, you have more power, and if you have less money, you have less power. That's quite a common belief. That's a bit different now. Okay, so in the next coming videos, I will talk about other ways of bringing up an energy. So things like clearing statements, things like affirmations, that kind of thing. But hopefully in this video at least you get the idea that just talking about something, being curious, being inquisitive might help bring an energy up so that you can work on it a bit better. And it may well come up in you too if you have the same issue. So be aware of that it's not necessarily the same as what the person you're working on has. Okay. Right, please do like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.